So today is the commemoration of the Disappearance Day of Srila Rupa Goswami and Das Pandit. So we'll chant the prayers as part of the Vaishnavas before class. No, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya
Hey,
Divine Grace Savaya, Charanada Goswami, Srila Prabhupada Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada Jai, Ananda Koti Vaishnava Jai, Namacharya Shailas Thakur Jai, Friends Ego Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Ramanichananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shiva Siddhi Gaur Bhaktavinda Jai, Shri Radha Krishna Govinda Sayan Kunda, Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Jai, Vrindavanam Jai, Maturadam Jai, Navadikam Jai, Jagannath Swami Jai, Yamunamai Jai, Srimati Lasidev Jai, Srimati Bhakta Vrinda Jai. Gaura Premanand. Oh, glorious is some glorious is some glorious. Oh, glorious is some glorious. Oh, glorious to Shri Guru and Gauranga, Srila Rupa Ki Jai. So read this prayer. He who brought the treasure of divine love and who was filled with compassion and mercy. Where is such a personality as Srinivasacharya God? Where am I Sarup Damodar? I am Rupa Goswami. Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where am I Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? And where is Krishna Das Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against the rock and enter into the fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all of these devotees in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottama Das simply weeps. So today is the commemoration of the disappearance of Gauri Das Pandit. Gauri Das Pandit and also Srila Rupa Goswami. So we'll speak about Gauri Das Pandit very shortly, and then we'll speak mostly about Srila Rupa Goswami. So Om Gana Tudandasha Kanjana Shabaya Chakshur Meditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So Gauri Das Pandit, he's one of the Dwadasha Sanghas, or cowherd boys, that are the primary associates in Krishna Lila, and he's known as Subal Sangha, and the 12 associates of Lord Nityananda, because Lord Nityananda's devotees are generally cowherd boys in Vrindavan. So Gauri Das Pandit is famous. I don't need to read the story. Gauri Das Pandit is famous because he had deities of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda that were exact replicas. In other words, they looked exactly like Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. And the The reason they looked exactly like Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda is that one day Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda were visiting him, and he wouldn't let them go. He said, "You can't go." And then there was some arrangement made so he could have them with him always, that deities would be made. And as a result of that, Lord Chaitanya posed for the deities that were made, Gordatai deities, and these Gordatai deities were worshipped by Gauridas Pandit. And later on, they were worshipped by his great disciple, Hridaya Chaitanya, who became known as Hridaya Ananda. Hridaya Ananda first and then Hridaya Chaitanya, because those deities later jumped into this disciple's heart. And there's an interesting story about that, but we don't have time to tell that story. So we want to speak about Srila Rupa Goswami. So in the Krishna consciousness movement, we are known, as Srila Prabhupada said, as Rupa Nugas. Rupa Nuga means follower of Srila Rupa Goswami. And of course, Srila Rupa Goswami's ontological position is Rupa Manjari. Manjari means like a small prepubescent girl, Manjaris, who are assisting Radha and Krishna in their intimate pastimes. There's the Sakis, like the Asta Sakis, and then there's the Manjaris. There's many different groups of gopis who are assisting the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his eternal consort, Srimati Radharani. Now, just one thing about the gopis, I was just reading in the Bhaktivinoda Thakur's wonderful book yesterday about the superlative position of the gopis, the Jaiva Dharma. So he was stating that of all the devotees, of all the consorts, or those who have the relationship with the Lord in Madhurya, the gopis are the most exalted because they never even think of their own pleasure. You have others who are eternal associates of Krishna who think of their own pleasure, like Kubja. He gives, Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives the example of Kubja, who is approaching Krishna for her pleasure. And then the wives of Krishna, where it's mixed. They're also thinking, of their happiness in Krishna consciousness, obviously, and thinking of Krishna's happiness. And then finally, the gopis who are only thinking of Krishna's happiness and neglecting, not even concerned about their own happiness, like the famous story that Prabhupada told about Narada Muni looking for someone who was willing to give the dust from his or her feet to cure Krishna's headache. And practically nobody was willing to do that except for the gopis of Vrindavan. So Srila Rupa Goswami, especially in his book, the Ujjvala Nilamani, details the exalted position of the gopis of Vrindavan. And of course, also in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is the first of the two books. It's the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and Ujjvala Nilamani, which is the postgraduate study of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, or as Srila Prabhupada called the Nectar of Devotion. Of course, we should study the Nectar of Devotion. I don't think I found too many people ready to read the Ujjvala Nilamani, this exalted book. So, anyway, it's probably called the Nectar of Devotion. The law book for our Krishna consciousness movement is considered of extreme importance. One should learn the details, especially in the first part of the Nectar of Devotion. The second part gets more into Radharani Bhakti, which people in general are not ready for, but at least the first part, which deals with Vaidhi Bhakti, that is the rules and regulations of devotional service under the jurisdiction of sadhana, practice. So right now we're practicing. And when you practice, then eventually you can do things spontaneously. But there must be a long period of practice, like when one is learning to play the piano, they have to practice scales, they have to practice different integrals with the left hand, right hand, using sheet music. Obviously they have to read from sheet music. And eventually they develop the skill where they can just think of some song or hear some song and just play spontaneously along with it. But that takes some time. Sometimes people think that spiritual life, spontaneous things can happen quickly, but it's not a fact. Unless one is already on an exalted platform of devotional service. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada cautioned us about associating with the Babajis in Radha Kund. We've seen this great danger recently. We've seen this great danger of those who associate with the Babajis, because generally we want things quickly and cheaply. Just like I've been studying about health a lot, giving lectures and seminars about health. And the problem with giving advice to people about health, especially in the Western world, or actually anywhere, is that people just want to take a pill rather than adjust their lifestyle. In other words, they don't want to take the trouble to reduce what they're eating or to change what they're eating, but they just go to the doctor and say, give me a pill and let me continue doing the same thing. We see this, of course, with typical lifestyle diseases like diabetes or headaches, migraine headaches, or other things like that. It's just people want just a simple solution so they can go on without adjusting their lifestyle. The same thing occurs in so-called spiritual life in Kali Yuga. People just want something very simple. Of course, in the 1960s, that something very simple was a pill like LSD. People would, it was very common that hippies would think that they could just take a pill and achieve spiritual realization. And in fact, there was one famous, but I better not mention, I'll mention Mr. Timothy Leary, who had this philosophy that God is in the pill in Kali Yuga. He knew a little bit about the Vedic literatures, but he said, in Kali Yuga, God has appeared in a pill. And there were even some sadhus, so-called sadhus in India, who would corroborate his particular opinion. And he went to India, and you see sadhus smoking marijuana and everything like that. But Krishna consciousness means to work very hard, like Prabhupada said, work now, samadhi later. What's that?
You can't hear guys.
That was a bit Maya. So, anyway, Prabhupada said, work now, samadhi later. And Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Work now, samadhi later. And we find devotees sometimes at the ripe old age of 61 or 62 who just want to retire to Vrindavan and just chant, or even 50 want to retire to Vrindavan and chant. But Prabhupada actually said, we want devotees like Arjuna. We don't want sit-down devotees. It's a direct quote from Prabhupada. He said, we don't want devotees to just sit down. We want devotees who fight like Arjuna. And just like a Kshatriya, he dies on the battlefield, and where he goes to heaven, because we're not interested in going to heaven. But we are interested in remaining. I think that's loud enough now, isn't it? We are interested. Hare Krishna. I think it's loud enough.
Good, it's fine.
That's fine. You can retire. So we're interested in dying on the battlefield fighting for Krishna. There's no question of retiring. We find with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and of course Bhaktivinoda Thakur, they were preaching Krishna consciousness till the end. I mean, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the last few months, he closed himself in and was engaged in simply what's called Nirjana Bhajana. But Prabhupada really did want devotees retiring in Vrindavan, moving to Vrindavan, unless they had some preaching service. I mean, obviously in Vrindavan there's a lot of preaching, but just to move there, just to chant, unless you're getting ready to die, then we can check you in the nice hospice that Giriraj Maharaj has built for the devotees, and then we'll arrange for you to hear and chant. But otherwise, people should not be, especially Prabhupada didn't want people living in Radha-kunds. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave direct instructions that we should not live in Radha-kund. He said even when you go to Vrindavan, you could stay at, Govardhan, like we have our Govardhan Palace there. But Radha-kund should be kept on your head. This is a direct quote from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. We shouldn't reside there. And we've seen many devotees succumb to this propaganda by many of the Babaji's. I'm not criticizing all of them. Many of the Babaji's that something simple or easy can be offered to you. And in doing so, they even criticize Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And they poison the devotees' spiritual lives. It's very, very dangerous. So also, Prabhupada also said that when the devotees go to the holy places, they shouldn't go on pilgrimage by themselves. They should always be accompanied by, some mature, older devotee or a group of devotees, because it's very, very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. Anyway, we've seen this. So, enough of that. Let's talk about Srila Rupa Goswami, who elaborates on the Vaidhi Bhakti in the Entry Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So, Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami were brothers. It's Nupama, or Nupama was also called Sri Vallabha. And these three brothers were working for the Nawab Hussain Shah. Nawab Hussain Shah was the Muslim leader at that particular time in Bengal. And the reason they were working, they were born in a very high-class Brahminical family. So it was understood in those days that when you were in a high-class Brahminical family and you took employment for the Muslims, you lost your caste. Basically, you became a Muslim. I mean, even as simple a thing as being sprinkled with water from a Muslim's water pot is enough to turn you into a Muslim. What to speak of working for them or hanging out with them or becoming their personal secretary and treasurer, like Rupa and Sanatana Goswami. So Rupa and Sanatana Goswami even got names, Arabic names that indicated their position, Dabur Qasim, Sakara Malik. And this means like personal secretary. These are Arabic names that indicated their position in relationship to the Nawab Hussain Shah. Now, the reason they took employment was not that they were interested in money, which they made quite a bit of, was that the Nawab Hussain Shah understood that these two personalities were so expert he needed them in his administration of the state. So, what he did is he threatened to kill many of the other devotees or Hindus, whatever, unless they agreed to work under his employment. So in order to save the devotees, they worked for him. So we should understand that. So they resided in a village known as Rama Kelly. And in this Rama Kelly, they were so attached to Krishna, even before meeting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they constructed a replica of Vrindavan. And they call that Gupta Vrindavan, means hidden Vrindavan. And then they would always be chanting and worshiping Krishna. It's not that they weren't devotees before, because they're eternally liberated associates of the Supreme Personality of God. Like I described Rupa Goswami. He's Rupa Mantri, Krishna's pastimes. And they were very, very educated personalities. They used Sanskrit, of course Urdu, Persian, Arabic, and so many of the languages that were present, obviously Hindi, but Hindi nowadays is mixed with Urdu. Urdu is like a Arabic-sized Hindi. That means you can mix a little bit of Arabic with Hindi and you get Urdu, which is spoken in Pakistan. So if anyone wants to know what Urdu is, that's what it is. And they studied Sanskrit under Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's brother. His name was Sarvananda Vidya Vachaspati. Anyway, they studied Sanskrit under him. And in the year 1514, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided to go to Vrindavan. Of course, he never made it all the way to Vrindavan at that particular point, because he was advised by Srila Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami that it wasn't appropriate for him to go to Vrindavan with the large entourage that he was traveling with. And they basically said, when one goes to Vrindavan, it should be done more or less in a meditative way, not like a circus going to Vrindavan. instruction for us too. Anyway, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stopped at Brahmakeli on the way to Vrindavan, which, as I said before, he never got to Vrindavan. And also he was accompanied by Lord Nityananda, Haridas Thakur. So Rupa and Sanatana Goswami met Lord Nityananda and Haridas Thakur first. And when they saw Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they exhibited signs of extreme humility. They took straw in their teeth. This is actually like a symbol of humility that's sometimes done in India. They took straws in their teeth and they bowed down to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And they started to cry in ecstasy. And tears poured from their eyes, as described like torrents of rain. And they offered this very, very wonderful prayer. Now we pray in English. You are the most merciful Savior of the fallen souls, O glorious to your Supreme Personality. We belong to the lowest class of men, and our associates and employment are of the lowest kind. Therefore, we feel it strange to introduce ourselves to you. We are ashamed, for you are so pure. Dear Lord, let us assure you that no one is more sinful than us, nor is there any offender like us. Since you have specifically incarnated to deliver the fallen souls, please consider that there are none so fallen as the two of us, for we are worse than Jagai and Madai. Now, it's interesting they consider themselves worse than Jagai and Madai. Obviously, they weren't. The reason they stated that is that Jagai and Madai never worked for the Muslim government. And associated with, Jagai and Madai did a horrible thing. They killed people and everything like that. So it's not that they were just like pious Hare Krishna devotees. But they had associated with the Muslim government, which was engaged in killing literally millions of Hindus or people who were followers of the Vedic tradition. In the space of 300 or 400 years, 80 million Hindus were killed by the Muslim invaders. This is history. 80 million. People talk about the Holocaust, World War II, Holocaust with the Germans. 10 million people were killed in concentration camps. But this is 80 million. This is the world's most extreme, largest, horrendous Holocaust disaster that's ever occurred. And this occurred, and people don't talk about this, what the Muslims did. And of course, these Muslims, we're not speaking in a way to criticize Muslims, but these were the Muslims who were Moguls, or they say Mughals. Anyway, different people and they pronounce it differently. So these are the ones that were influenced by the descendants of people like Genghis Khan, who came from the north and actually took over the original Muslim culture, which was far more advanced even than the European culture, even the Christian culture. In fact, the Christians in the Dark Ages in Europe, they destroyed the books of the great philosophers, the great Greek philosophers, like Aristotle and Plato and other books like that. Of course, Socrates didn't even write anything. Plato wrote books about Socrates and used Socrates as a character to elaborate on his philosophy. So they destroyed these books, and it was the Muslims in Baghdad who actually saved these literatures. It's interesting. But later on, the Muslim civilization was degraded by the influence of the Mongols. And they also went to India, and as we mentioned, they were killed. Especially this Aurangzeb, he was perhaps the most famous of the Mongols. It's described that before he ate every day, he would have to have his weight in Brahmin threads of Brahmins that were killed. That's how demoniac he was. So anyways, so this is an explanation of why they considered themselves very fallen. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that I have come here specifically to save you, referring to Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. And he said, you are my eternal servants, I'm going to save you. And at that time he gave them the name Rupa and Sanatana. And also Lord Chaitanya gave the name Anupama to Sri Vallabha, who was their brother. So Rupa Goswami, after this time, renounced this world, and Prabhupada said he set an example. He gave 50% of his money to Brahmins and Vaishnavas, 25% to relatives, and 25% for personal emergencies. And that 25% was later on used to get his brother Sanatana Goswami out of prison, because Sanatana Goswami was in prison when he tried to escape. Not exactly escape, but he tried to not go and take care of his duties with the Nawab Hussain Shah. So, then, let's see. So Rupa Goswami, Rupa Goswami later on met Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Benares. Rupa and Nupama, that's Sanatana Goswami, met Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Benares, and Rupa Goswami got instructions from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Benares. And they wanted to go to Jagannath Puri with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but he instructed them to go to Vrindavan at that particular time. On the way to Vrindavan, Anupama left this world, and then Rupa Goswami went to Jagannath Puri after he visited Vrindavan. And while traveling to Vrindavan, Rupa Goswami conceived of elaborating on the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, specifically the rasa theology. Rasa theology means the taste of relationships by writing dramas. He had this wonderful idea to do that. And so he came up with this idea to write dramas about Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan and in Dwarka. And he wanted to combine them in one drama. And then he had a dream, and Satyabhama, when he was going through this village known as Satyabhama Puri, Satyabhama appeared to him, and she told him, "You write a separate play about me." So these are the two famous plays, the Vidagdha Madhava and the Lalita Madhava. So the Vidagdha Madhava is about Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, and the Lalita Madhava is about Krishna's pastimes out of Vrindavan in Dwarka. Of course, Lalita means playful in this particular context, not referring to the Gopi Lalita. So when Rupa Goswami got to Jagannath Puri, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, yes, this is proper to write two different plays, because the pastimes and the relationships in Vrindavan have a different taste or different flavor than the relationships in Dwarka. So these books were finished later on. And these two books today are regarded by Gaudiya Vaishnavas as very important dramatic literatures in the Sanskrit language. They were written in Sanskrit. So of course, when Rupa Goswami was in Jagannath Puri, he did not go into the temple because he was considered to be an outcast at that point, because he had associated and worked for the Muslims. So this is very interesting, even though he's a very high-class person. Similarly, nowadays, we are not allowed into the temple. Of course, we're not allowed to Rupa Goswami, but because we were born in the Western world, and even if someone is from India and they live in the Western world for some time, they're actually prohibited from going to the temple, unless they can hide that fact. So we know devotees from Fiji, for example, or Indian body, who hide the fact by not speaking, because their Hindi is quite different than the Hindi in India. So they hide the fact that they're actually from Fiji, so then they can go into the temple. And one time, one of our godbrothers, Bhakti Tirthamar, snuck into the temple. And he didn't speak. He had like a covering over his head, and he hunched down like that. And they asked him, where are you from? And he said, somehow he spoke in English, and he got away with it. He went in. And he was so ecstatic to see Lord Jagannath, and ecstatic that he got away with it, he went back that evening to do the same thing. He went to the temple, and he was discovered. And the Pandavas were running after him with sticks to beat him, because that's what happens when you try to sneak in the temple. And he did a very funny description of how he jumped over different walls to get away. He climbed these big walls around the temple and jumped over the walls to get away from the Pandavas. Anyway, So that when Rupa Goswami finally went to Vrindavan to stay, he established the deity of Vrindavan in Vrindavan. It's a very famous deity. Of course, later on that deity was taken to, where is that? Not out of Vrindavan, it's very interesting. This deity, not Vrindavan, that's not the deity of Vrindavan. That's a newer deity. Is taken to Kamyavan, that's the place. Kamyavan is at the border of Braj, the whole area of Braj. And while the people were taking all the deities out of Braj and saving them from the Muslim invaders, they were unable to take Vrinda Devi out. She refused to move. She's actually not a big deity. I've seen her in Kamyavan. Anyone here been in Kamyavan? No, no one here has been to Kamyavan. One day, everybody's go on this Braj Mandal curriculum where you go all the way around Vrindavan. So anyway, so Kamyavan, she's still there. She's about this big. And can you imagine they couldn't move her? Even though, I mean, obviously, usually deities this big, you just put on your shoulder and you walk away. But this deity couldn't, because she refused to leave Vrindavan. So this is described here. It's the Madan Mohan temple in Kamyavan, which is western Braj. So, while meditating on Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's desire to establish the temples in Vrindavan and to remember where Krishna performed his pastimes, Rupa Goswami was thinking about this, and then a young boy approached him and asked the reason for his despondency. And he told this young boy of the mission he'd been given by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And after this, the young boy led him to a small hill. And he said, inside this hill is a deity. So this is the deity of Govinda Devi, sorry. And this deity had been buried during one of the Muslim invasions. And the boy said, every day a cow comes by this place and showers her milk all over the hill. And it seeps through in this way, the milk seeps through. And in this way, Govinda Dev relishes his daily meal. So after describing this, the young boy disappeared. Actually, it's understood that the young boy was probably Krishna. And then Rupa Goswami, he was thinking about this. How can this be true? And then he saw a cow come, and without being milked, the cow just let her milk out of her milk bag, spurted out. And he thought, wow, there must be a deity here. So he informed the villagers, and they dug up and they found the deity of Govinda Dev. And this Govinda Dev deity is now Jaipur, because later on the Muslims attacked again, and they moved the deity, many of the deities were moved to Jaipur. So he constructed this beautiful temple, Radha Govinda temple. It was paid for by the Emperor Akbar, who was known as very liberal. The Emperor Akbar was trying to get people of different religions to all work together, the Muslim religion, basically the Muslim religion, and the Hindu religion, trying to get them all to work together. And of course there were other groups like the Sufis that were sort of an amalgamation of Hinduism with the Muslim religion. They dance, the Sufis are dancing, they're whirling dervishes. So, anyway, the Maharaj Man Singh of Amber donated the red sandstone, but later on, this temple, which was quite high, it was like 7 stories high, Aurangzeb, who I mentioned before, became so disturbed because he saw the ghee lamps on the top of the temple all the way from Agra, which is where his fort was, that he sent his men to destroy the temple. They were able to tear down the top 3 stories of the temple. And then all of a sudden, the ground started shaking. In other words, Krishna got very angry. The ground started shaking, and they ran away. So they only tore down the top 3 stories. And still today, the temple is quite magnificent. Not taken care of very well. So also, Rupa Goswami's most important contribution is his books. He compiled 16 most important books, over 100,000 verses in his books. His books include the Bhagavad Gita, which I mentioned before, the Lita Madhava, I mentioned before, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is our law book for the Krishna consciousness movement, Ujjvala Nila Vimani Upadeshamrita, which Srila Prabhupada considered extremely important. He had it distributed widely. In Dana Kelly, that means the tax pastimes, Kaumudi, it talks about Krishna's pastimes with the gopis, and the Laghu Bhagavatamrita. So, let's see. So, Gandhi Madhava I described before, Lita Madhava I described before, Rastamrita Sindhu I described before, and oh yeah, there's an interesting story. Rupa Goswami one time wanted to prepare something for his brother Sanatana Goswami. And then a young girl came and brought him some sugar and milk and other ingredients. And he prepared this very nice beer for Sanatana Goswami. Of course, all ordered to go in the day. And Sanatana Goswami, after tasting, understood that these ingredients did not come from the material world. They actually came from the spiritual world. And he asked Rupa Goswami, where did you get these ingredients? Rupa Goswami described these ingredients came from a young girl. He asked Rupa Goswami to describe what the young girl looked like. And indeed, the young girl was Srimati Radharani. And Sanatana Goswami got so angry with Rupa Goswami said, don't you understand, we are not supposed to take service from Srimati Radharani. We're supposed to serve Srimati Radharani and Krishna. So we chastise, but in a loving way, like this. So, any questions or comments? We have about 1 minute left in class. So Rupa Goswami is a very important personality, perhaps amongst the Goswamis, for us, the most important personality, because we are known as Rupa Das. Followers, if you would, yes.
Didn't Akbar meet Mirabai?
Akbar met Mirabai too, yes. Akbar met Mirabai and also Jiva Goswami.
Akbar, where Rupa Goswami was working with Akbar?
Akbar helped build that temple. Akbar was really interested in bringing all the religions together, rather than, just propagating the Muslim religion. He was a very liberal personality. And yes, he did make Mirabai too. At least it shows that he met Mirabai, and that Mirabai's, there's a whole story about Mirabai, that Mirabai's husband and family were so aggravated with her for meeting with this Muslim that he actually came dressed, there's a story that he came dressed as a ordinary person. Yeah, he disguised himself to meet with her, because obviously he couldn't just come in his normal dress. So yes, Akbar did the Mirabai. Mirabai was later rejected by her family and told to take poison. And this is the story. She entered into the deity. She took poison, entered the deity, and all they found in the deity room was her sitar or veena, which she had. But Akbar was interested in all religions. He would have meetings trying to amalgamate the beliefs of all the religions so that people could live in peace. Unfortunately, his grandson was not such a nice person. You know that was? Ramta.
Ransi.
Yeah. John.